to do that.
And she did great. She really did. And it was a little bit hairy. It was for me. Maybe it wasn't for her, but...
He doesn't boast. He doesn't decorate. Hackman remembers, then honors. And once he names someone, you feel the weight. It isn't praise. It's recognition.
I mean, you like him or not, that's who he was. You couldn't really whitewash him.
For half a century, Hackman built a reputation as one of cinema's most authentic voices, shaping men of authority, doubt, humor, and rage. But behind the intensity, behind the grit, there's another truth. Hackman was always watching, always learning. He knew the ones who set the standard, the actors who didn't just perform, but redefined what it meant to be, the one actor who fit, the one voice he trusted, the one performance that carried more than dialogue, it carried truth. Hackman doesn't celebrate noise, he honors resonance. Bonnie and Clyde, The French Connection, Unforgiven, The Royal Tenenbaums. Every performance sharpened across generations, yet at the core of Hackman's own craft is a lifetime of reverence for those who came before, those who stood beside him, and those whose presence made him stronger. And when Hackman points to them, it isn't casual, it isn't polite, it's a map to his own DNA as an artist.
Pacino and I were up in San Francisco, and we thought maybe we'd try to get into the characters, the bums.
He's worked with legends, he's studied icons, but only a few became permanent fixtures in his memory, the ones who gave everything and left him changed. Here are the 6 actors Gene Hackman holds highest, above fame, above the moment, and why no one else has ever replaced them. Number 1. James Cagney. Some actors chase spotlight. Hackman chased craft, and the first name etched in that journey wasn't a peer. It was a force of nature in black and white. James Cagney. Hackman once recalled his first reaction watching Cagney on screen. There was a kind of energy about him, and he was totally different from anyone I'd ever seen in my life. Cagney wasn't just a tough guy, he was a tornado with purpose. Hackman saw how Cagney could pivot from explosive to tender in a breath. In White Heat, he burned. In Yankee Doodle Dandy, he danced like he owned the floor. That range, untamed, exact, showed Hackman the blueprint. Don't demand attention, earn gravity. Cagney's acting wasn't method, it was momentum. And Hackman, watching in small-town theaters, understood that presence didn't require size, it required charge. Years later, when Hackman was known for his stillness, you could trace the voltage back to Cagney. I loved the idea that somebody could convince me that they were a sea captain without being phony. Hackman didn't just admire the technique, he admired the integrity. Cagney was a studio rebel, walking away at his peak, refusing to be boxed in. That defiance echoed in Hackman's own path. Never chasing stardom, only roles that felt grounded.
You're committed to doing what you know best. You have to be so self-involved that nobody can stand you.
Even decades later, when asked about the actors who shaped him most, Hackman didn't hesitate. Cagney came first. There's a line that I always wanted to say, "Top of the world, Ma, top of the world," but he didn't want the line for the spotlight. He wanted it for its electricity. Cagney's spirit wasn't about polish, it was about punch. That became Hackman's compass. If it's not real, don't do it. Cagney never wasted a moment. Neither did Hackman. For Hackman, Cagney was the fuse, the first spark, the standard, still is. Number 2, Errol Flynn. Before Gene Hackman ever stepped onto a stage, he was a kid in Illinois, staring up at larger-than-life men who seemed to leap from the screen. One of them didn't just leap, he swashbuckled. Errol Flynn. Hackman once said Flynn made it all look easy. He had such style. You believed him, even when he was grinning through danger. Flynn wasn't just playing roles, he was defining a type. From Captain Blood to The Adventures of Robin Hood, he didn't act like a hero, he moved like one. Hackman watched those films not for fantasy, but for rhythm, for how a man could hold the screen without effort. There was something magnetic in the looseness, the danger, the joy. Flynn could command a room without force. That left an imprint.
I'll organize revolt. Exact a death for a death.
Hackman didn't grow up around actors, he grew up where toughness was quiet. So when he saw someone like Flynn, graceful and fearless, it wasn't escapism. It was a blueprint. I never thought of him as fake. He was having fun, but he was still telling the truth. Flynn was never method, never heavy. He flowed. Hackman didn't copy him, but he studied that flow. He learned that charisma doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be there. Later, when Hackman played men of strength, Popeye Doyle, Little Bill, Royal Tenenbaum, there was always a charge beneath the stillness, a kind of flicker that could turn at any second. That, in spirit, traces back to Flynn. I think Flynn was the first actor who made me want to try. He made it look like something I could reach for. For Hackman, Flynn wasn't about polish. He was about presence, confidence without arrogance, the kind of actor who didn't need to convince you because you were already sold. And that belief, it stayed. Number 3. Edward G. Robinson. Gene Hackman never admired actors for how loud they were. He admired them for how deep they went, and no actor went deeper, with less fuss, than Edward G. Robinson. Hackman didn't fall in love with Robinson's fame. He fell in love with his intelligence, the quiet authority, the simmering logic, the way Robinson could play power without needing to move an inch. He didn't rely on size, he relied on thought. You could see it happening on his face. From Little Caesar to Double Indemnity, Robinson played men in pressure cookers, calculating, burning, always one step ahead. Hackman was drawn to that. He understood it. Not just the words, but the silences between them. As a young actor, Hackman studied Robinson the way some study chess, frame by frame. He didn't just watch the lines, he watched the stillness, the resistance. That's where the truth lived.
Well, I never have. No, I guess I won't. Do you know what you want?
Robinson gave Hackman something else. Permission to be plain. To not chase glamour. Robinson was never about being likable. He was about being right for the moment. He was one of the first guys who made me think it was okay to just be who you are. In a world of screen gods, Robinson made space for character actors to lead. He proved substance could anchor a story just as much as charm. That lesson stayed with Hackman. Whether he was playing heroes, villains, or both, he didn't force likability. He focused on truth. Robinson wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. His strength came from control. Hackman built his own foundation on that. There was steel in him. You didn't always see it at first, but it was there. For Hackman, Robinson was more than a performer. He was proof that presence isn't something you add, it's something you earn. Number 4. Dustin Hoffman. Some actors arrive in your life through the screen. Others arrive across the hall, with the rent overdue and dreams just as shaky. That was Dustin Hoffman for Gene Hackman. They weren't co-stars. They were roommates, struggling actors in New York, years before the awards and the prestige. But even then, Hackman knew. Hoffman had something rare. He was already working in a way that was deeper than most people understood. Back then, Hoffman was intense, obsessive, constantly breaking down scripts and characters, even if the jobs didn't come. He wasn't chasing stardom, he was chasing craft. And Hackman, coming from a tougher, more grounded style, respected that focus.
Story about Dusty.
I know what you're going to tell. You're going to tell about the money you lent me. I know you're going to tell this fucking
Such
story.
a funny story, I think.
When The Graduate hit, the world saw Hoffman's range. But Hackman wasn't surprised. He'd already seen it, in cramped apartments and casting calls where they'd walk out empty-handed, but keep going anyway. He didn't care about being handsome or charming. He just wanted it to be real. Their careers took different paths. Hoffman became known for transformation, Hackman for control, but there was always mutual respect, even when they weren't working together. They knew what the other had survived. They knew what it took to last. And despite their different approaches, there was one thing they shared, a belief in the work. Hoffman didn't want shortcuts. He wanted truth, even if it meant making people uncomfortable. Hackman admired that, because it reminded him that longevity isn't about popularity, it's about honesty. He never gave a safe performance. Never once, and I don't think he ever will. For Hackman, Dustin Hoffman isn't just a favorite actor, he's part of the origin story, a fellow fighter, someone who earned everything the hard way, and kept nothing fake. Number 5. Robert Duvall. If Gene Hackman had a brother in the craft, it might have been Robert Duvall. They came up at the same time. Same city, same circles, both quiet men who let the work speak. But what Hackman saw in Duvall, especially early on, was a purity most actors never reach. He was the kind of actor who never pushed, never showed off. He just lived in the scene. There was no ego, no flash. Whether Duvall was delivering 2 lines or holding an entire scene together, Hackman respected the way he never overreached. and when they did share the screen, like in Geronimo or The Conversation, there was a natural rhythm between them. No one competing, just two craftsmen doing their jobs.
He was so natural. He said he saw it 7 times.
What Hackman admired most wasn't the roles, it was the commitment. Duvall brought the same focus to a supporting part that others would reserve for a lead. That consistency, that discipline, stuck with Hackman for life. He could disappear into a role better than almost anyone I've ever seen. Hackman knew how rare that was. To be versatile without being loud, to be powerful without needing volume. Duvall had it. Whether it was Tender Mercies, Apocalypse Now, or The Godfather, he made every choice feel lived in. There's a specific kind of admiration that exists between peers who've been through the same grind. With Duvall, Hackman didn't just see a great actor, he saw someone who never cheated the work. Bob was never interested in being a star, he just wanted the role to be true. For Hackman, Duvall represented what acting should be. Honest, invisible and earned, no shortcuts, no tricks, just the real thing, every single time. Number 6. John Cazale. Some actors leave behind 100 roles, others leave behind 5, but never miss. For Gene Hackman, John Cazale was one of the rarest. A performer whose work was so quiet, so grounded, so complete. It didn't need volume, it just needed honesty. There was no waste in what he did. Every moment counted. Cazale's filmography is short, but it's flawless. The Godfather, The Conversation, Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter, The Godfather, Part 2, all nominated for Best Picture. Not a single weak link, not a single false moment. Hackman worked with him on The Conversation, and even in that ensemble, surrounded by giants, Cazale's presence was unforgettable. Hackman saw an actor who wasn't trying to impress. He was just telling the truth, moment to moment.
Oh, no, that was nothing, Mike.
What struck Hackman wasn't just the performance, it was the depth beneath it. Cazale didn't overplay fear, or guilt, or confusion. He carried it like a real person would, subtle, heavy, human, and always specific. He didn't decorate anything. He let it sit. And that's what made it hurt more. Hackman, who built his own career on restraint, saw in Cazale a kindred spirit. Someone who understood that silence can speak louder than dialogue. That stillness, when earned, can land like thunder, and linger long after the scene ends. They didn't share the screen often, but the respect was deep. Hackman admired how Cazale disappeared into the moment every time without asking for credit or spotlight. He wasn't chasing attention. He was chasing the truth in the scene. That's all. John Cazale never gave a false performance. And for Hackman, that's the highest standard there is. A life's work may be short, but if it's real, it echoes forever, even in silence. He never asked for loyalty. He never needed a crowd. But if you earned Gene Hackman's respect, you didn't have to ask twice. He remembered. Most actors are remembered for who they pretended to be. These 6, they're remembered for who they were, on screen and beneath it. Not louder, not flashier, just truer. That's what Hackman saw, and what he never forgot. So who do you think almost made the cut? Who came close to cracking Hackman's inner circle, but didn't quite last? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're the kind of viewer who re-watches scenes just to catch the breath before the line, then you're in the right place. Like, subscribe, and unlock the next layer of Hollywood's sharpest minds, one name at a time. Because in Gene Hackman's world, talent opened the door, but honesty kept you inside.